Welcome to Hair in the Hawthorn. We've got a bit of a special today. This is a kind of a squeeze in between my regular YouTube channel podcast with people. And it's extra special, not only because I have two guests this evening, because it's something that's very close to my heart. So today I have the guys from Haunted Magazine. So welcome, Paul and Andy.
Oh, sorry, I was reading this great magazine. Do apologise. Hello.
Hello. How are you both doing?
Yeah, fine. Thank you very much.
Good. So I wanted to get you on here because it's the launch of, I'm going to really drop back into my northern accent now. I've been trying to sound like quite posh throughout this, but it's going to come through definitely with you guys on. So we're seeing the launch of this month's magazine, and it's going to be hitting people's doorsteps hopefully from tomorrow. So
tomorrow/weekend, yeah.
So the date is tomorrow.
Well, it's officially out tomorrow. We got the magazines a bit early. Andy's been Postman Pat today and posted shed loads of magazines today, bless him. And they'll be dropping people through letterboxes, the UK ones, of course, in tomorrow or Saturday, I would have thought, to be honest. But yes, it's the biggest seller ever for the history of the mag.
It's so exciting, and we'll definitely talk about why that is in a minute. But for those people who don't know what the magazine's about, we'll start with that, and then I'll come on to asking about you guys and where it started for you. But what is the magazine about?
Just a big fun bundle of paranormal fun. It's not about ghosts. It's every sector of the paranormal genre, from fairies to demons, from mediums to pictures of ghosts caught on camera. It's just from modern to past. The thing about the paranormal is that Andy will agree, there's no subject that will ever run out of topics. They can dip into certain histories and certain people, and there's a story from every part of the world, be it Australia, Canada, UK, wherever. It's just it's something that when I first created the magazine, I knew that it had legs, but I never thought it could get as big as it has got. And that's down to this guy here probably as well, as much as anything. if he's down there,
he is down there, yeah.
Might be up there, so. But no, I mean, it's a joy to do. It's a passion. We love the paranormal, Andy and I do. It's a joy to work with Andy on it, and it's a pleasure, like yourself, Kate, to have writers like yourself working for us and coming up with features that you love doing and we love featuring.
I think one of the great things about the magazine is definitely that the majority of writers who are in there who are actually in the field doing it as well. They're not just sort of in the closet writing away all the time. They're out actually in the field doing what they love and what they're passionate about doing, and that definitely comes across in the articles. Can you mention some of the kind of writers that you've had in the past that kind of stand out, other than myself, of course?
Of course. Go on, Paul. Go on.
Right, me. Well, Richard Eastep. He is. We've talked about Richard many times and many shows. He is obviously a paranormal writer, written so many books. Plus, he's also a paramedic fighting this deadly thing we've got at the minute and helping people get through that. So he's just a hero in so many ways to us. We've got Penny Griffiths, we've got yourself, Kate, we have Mike Cavell, we have Amanda from Spookies, we have Lorien Jones, Hubert Hobuck. There's so many great names out there, and it's without reading off Kate Turrell, without looking at the past magazines, I can't tell everybody, but we managed to find people who get what the magazine is about, understand the magazine, but also have their own interest in the paranormal, and that's what helps us. As an editor, I don't want to say to you, I want you to write about this, because it's me telling you, and maybe that's what it should do, but you've got a story, you've got an interest, you approach us, it's perfect. Why would it's your passion, you want to write about your subject, who are we to argue? And when it comes to us, the majority of writing is perfect from the people that we get. Absolutely brilliant. There's just, whether they're published, old, young, unpublished, or whatever, the paranormal is a great subject to pilfer through, basically.
Yeah, I mean, it's so utterly wide, isn't it? I mean, there's no end to it. There's no end to where you can dip and weave into it with the subject matter. I want to start off, Paul, with you. I know, Andy, you're being quite quiet at the minute, which I will get around to you though. Paul, you started the magazine, and we were just chatting before we came on to record about its origins, and it's fascinating where it kind of started from. Do you want to talk us through that?
Yeah, I mean, actually quite a few times recently, to be fair. And I had the long story is that I actually have 3 magazine ideas. I had a dog magazine called Shep. I had a magazine about curry called Norm But the Best.
Oh, no.
And I had a magazine called Haunted about ghosts. And obviously I couldn't do 3. That was too much where I was working and everything and that kind of thing. So I had to choose one. And at the time, Most Haunted was at its pomp. It was really good, popular. I loved it back then. And I went down the way of the paranormal. So as I mentioned before off air, I was checking the domain name of Haunted Magazine a few weeks back, and as the renewal came up, and it said 3rd of June 2006. So that's when the idea came along. Then, of course, I had twins. Well, the wife had twins. So that put that on the back burner. So then I'm thinking, I've got to do something. And then 2009 came along, did the magazine in print. And it probably was, without wanting to sound arrogant or pretentious, it probably was too ahead of its time for the audience that were in the paranormal at the time. It was a fun, cheeky kind of magazine about all things paranormal. People get it now, but maybe not back 11 years ago. It ran for 10 issues. Andy came on board the last print issue. It just cost too much money to print. Andy suggested digital. We went digital. It basically built the magazine up from what it was to what it is now. 4 years ago, decided to go back to print and digital. And Andy and I have worked together since 2010, end of 2010. And this guy, he's the guy who designs it all, puts all the jigsaw pieces together. Without him, it would just be crayons and staples, believe you me.
Bless you. So, Andy, what do you do? What's your behind the scenes?
So basically, I receive in our Dropbox a series of text Word documents. And from those and a handful of pictures that are usually supplied to me, they are basically blended, merged, tweaked into the magazine that you see now. I don't necessarily call myself an artist. I think I'm an alchemist. I put things together to knit them together in a certain way. I think I've got better at some of the Photoshop skills along the way. If you go back to the early Haunted digital magazines to what it is now, there's quite a transformation. And that's really just by watching what other people do and seeing if we can make something better. The key thing that over the years that really has kind of worked for me is use the words as the most important thing in the magazine, because you can make everything look pretty, but if it distracts from what's actually being said, because we have such a great team of writers, then you kind of have to get the right balance between the two, and searching for that right balance has been an interesting journey, and I think we are there now where we can kind of get the right link. I mean, we've tried again some new things in this latest edition. It's a bigger mag. It's got a new pull-out section. We trialed that last time. This time I think it's definitely the best way, because it UFOs and that kind of area is something that doesn't really get much of a look in print. You get 14 times and the odd ones where it's kind of like a small section of it. There we go. Here's one that my able assistant can show you. Well, I say able assistant. But it's just this, it's kind of a unique blend. There's nothing really out there that has what we put into this magazine, and that is a credit really to the writing talent that comes our way, and they give us the kind of not just the inspiration but their permission really to use their experiences in and publish it in this way. And I absolutely love where we are now. There's been this growth from issue, I'd say 23, when we had the Newkirks on with the Hellier project, which was phenomenal. And from that point, I think the magazine has just kind of gone strength to strength to strength, both in writing talent, both in the team behind the scenes. And I just think we are now at a position where this magazine just deserves to be read.
Yeah, I think, sorry, I think you're right, Andy. I think from 23 onwards, I think people thought, oh, it's not just Paul and Andy. There's actually a team behind these people, and there's actually some good features. It's not just these two guys doing a magazine for the hell of it. They're actually serious about what they're doing and everything. And we've always said glossy covers page one of the magazine. We've always said quality design and quality features. We've always said that, and we believe we've done that. But Andy's right. Since 23, since Hellier and the Newkirks, it seems to have gone up several notches each time.
It's definitely blossomed. It definitely has that very much slick, could be in any W.H. Smith's, pitting itself against any other magazine on the shelf now. It's I mean, especially this one, like you say, the Hellier cover, you know, that magazine was brilliant. I mean, I have a raft of back copies of the magazine, but it has gone, and it's almost like it's bigger than you guys now. That's how it feels. It feels like it's an entity in its own right, and a magazine in its own right, which gives it that real kind of professional and slickness about it. And like you say, there are people who are passionate about what they're writing, and you guys do it justice about how you lay it out and how you present it. And the fact that you were so accepting of other viewpoints and the kind of quirkier the better, I think is what you go for. You know, you're not scared to take on subjects and directions that maybe others would veer away from in the subject area, which I think is amazing. I need to ask you both, and I know we're rattling through this at a rate of knots. It's probably because I've had loads of coffee and I'm dead excited. But I need to ask you both kind of, I do ask two specific questions to everybody who comes and on the show. And one of them is, where did it start for you? Where did the paranormal, where was that moment of, this is for me, the paranormal is for me?
I think for me, Kate, I feel like it's always been with me, not as some kind of gift. I'm not psychic, I'm not anything like that at all. But as a kid, I got this book, the Osborne book, all about ghosts. I think I was 9 or 10. And I loved it. I loved the way it presented the paranormal and adult over 18 subject for a kid. It basically said it's all right to see things. It's all right to believe in ghosts. It's all right to believe in UFOs and werewolves and that kind of thing. And I fell in love with the whole Osborne range of the way they tackled subjects that probably weren't taught at school or mentioned at school or mentioned by your parents. But they said, kids, it's all right to be different or all right to believe in these kind of things. And then I got into Harry Price. I love Borley Rectory, big fan of Borley Rectory, big fan of Harry Price. And I got into that kind of it. And then, of course, you know, the horror Hammer films, that kind. I've always been a passionate horror and paranormal fan. And I think it's just gone from that. I've always loved writing as well. I think it's just grown from then into what it is today, along with, you know, my normal working life and that kind of thing. It's always been side by side. Every time I've worked at a company, I've designed the newsletter or I've written for them in their newsletter, that kind of thing. So it's just something that I've always had a passion for, be it ghosts, be it horror films, be it Harry Price and Borley Rectory and the old sort of like mediums of Victorian. I love the Victorian era. Anything about it. The kids are doing Victorians at school and I'm just like, oh yes, can I help? Please, can I help? You know, kind of thing. But I feel like it's always been with me, and I've loved it since about 9 or 10.
That's good. What about you, Andy? Where did it start for you?
Well, being slightly younger than Paul.
Just a smidge.
My interest really started again, probably similar kind of age to when Paul was experiencing this. I think first proper sort of spooky experience, school trip, Beaver Castle, and there was a ghost story that we were told in there, which kind of sets the tingles on the back of your neck at an early age, and that kind of fascinates you. Loved Scooby-Doo as a kid and all that kind of thing. And then as it kind of gravitated, my grandfather had the complete Unexplained magazine. So I was exposed to things like the spontaneous human combustion, the Cottingley fairies, which I absolutely adored, and just that was probably my first inroad to it. I was at the right age to hit the X-Files at the right time. That fascinated me, and I think there's been little things that have kind of punctuated my interest in the paranormal. I mean, things like Close Encounters of the Third Kind, the movie Poltergeist. But I've also had a few minor experiences at those sort of times. I thought I saw something when I was quite young of a UFO nature. And then that sort of rekindled itself recently when both myself and my son saw something in the sky that we really genuinely couldn't explain. I mean, we live close to an airport, but this was a lot higher up in the sky. Another story for another day. But yeah, so X-Files, episodes like Tombs, that kind of captured the imagination. But I think, like a lot of people, to actually kind of get into the kind of the magazine side of things and the investigation side of things was probably most haunted. I mean, it did. I mean, Ghost Watch was brilliant, but it was a one-off, and obviously there was the furore that happened around that as well, which was so sad because it was such a genius bit of television. But Most Haunted was basically a plotted version of that, really. And that was the seed for so many people. Obviously, it's been on a different journey over the years, but certainly at that time, that first couple of series, that was the thing that kind of said, I'm back into this, and I don't think this is going to stop now. And it hasn't.
That's brilliant. So, I mean, for me, the Most Haunted, I actually couldn't watch it for years because it terrified me, much to the amusement of everybody around me. And even now, when I look back, I'm like, what was I scared of with that? So one of the things, the other question that I ask everybody who comes on here is, and you kind of touched on it a little bit there, Andy, and I'll ask you first, in a nutshell, the freakiest experience that you've had, and I must put in brackets there, paranormal. So not just freaky experience. Don't want to go down that road.
Remember, I work with Paul.
Exactly.
Well, actual freakiest, I still think, is probably Prism Nightclub. And I've said this recently, actually. We were investigating Prism Nightclub for the very first time, and it was. We'd had some footage that appeared on social media of a till opening up and so on and so forth. And we were in this particular part that was called the boudoir. Now, so I had walked from where everybody was kind of in the main hall area, thinking Jason's with me. So I'm there talking away. We go up the stairs. And I feel like I've seen something in the top corner of movement, and I'm talking away. I mean, I've gone upstairs at this point. I expect to turn around and have Jason with me, and he's just not there. I was on my own. And Tom, who was the club manager at the time, heard me talking away. For all intents and purposes, Jason was with me, but he was quite a way behind me. Something felt like that it had walked into that room with me. And that is the strangest experience, probably. I mean, I've seen other strange things, and another strange thing actually at Prism, but that's the one that kind of makes me go, what was that about? Because that was genuinely, I genuinely thought that I had got somebody with me, and they weren't there.
How about you, Paul? Strangest thing?
I think it's even pre-Haunted Live and pre-Haunted Magazine for me. As I started to be a freelance writer back in about 2003-04, and to do that, I had to take on other jobs to fuel the income, so to speak. So I worked in a call centre, and I did nights on my own, 9 p.m. till 7 a.m. It wasn't very busy, to be fair, and it's where I sort of planned the magazine, that kind of thing, during the night. And this was a particular old mill, an old cotton mill, 250 years old. I think actually Most Haunted had been there, called Plesley Vale Mills. And I know all about the stories about children dying there and everything. So, but I worked there at nights, nothing ever happened. One night, I think I must have nodded off by accident. And I woke up startled, to see about 40 Victorian kids all looking at me, seriously, and I freaked myself out. I literally just didn't know what to do. I don't know whether I was still asleep, the second dream kind of thing, or I'd been doing the magazine thing too much, or hearing about the stories about the kids being killed in the mill as it back in the day. But literally, I remember the phone must have rang on the call center. I must have either woke up and literally these kids were all dressed and they all had the old demon eyes, and they all were looking at me, and they were all dressed in the old hats and the Victorian gear and everything. And it's still to this day, every time you ask that question, it still comes to my head. As regards, Andy says, I've experienced East Drive, 30 East Drive, freaky stuff, Prism, the Antiques Place, Bosworth Hall. But I think it was my first ever kind of. I mean, I'm still thinking, was it paranormal? Was it a dream state? I just do not know. But the fact that it was a haunted mill with kids there in the past, you never know. But yeah, that's what springs to mind.
I know the mills pretty well. It's somewhere. I had a friend who lived at the back of it, so we spent a lot of time sort of around that area. And I know that just off from the train tracks, right the way back over the fields, there was a devil worship place that you would go up, and it would be covered in blood on a regular basis. But I know the history of the mills. People used to break in when it was, when it was part derelict, and lots of stories came out of that place. And even just that part, when you go down there, it sends chills. It's foreboding, isn't it? That building.
Yeah, the road to it off the main road is still quite windy, isn't it? And everything. Yeah. It is dark and there's no lighting. It is quite foreboding. But we were there for 2 years on nights. Not many experiences, but that was the one that kind of. I had another experience. I went to the toilet one night, walked to the toilet, fine, all the doors were locked on all the units. Came back and this door was open. I thought, you're kidding me not. And I ran past it and it rattled as I went past. I don't know if it was my weight as I went past running away, but that kind of thing. All the doors are shut. When you go back, I'm thinking, what's going on here? There was a security guard, so he may have been there, but it's a great place, a lovely old building, great place.
It is. So back onto the magazine. So what's the future for the magazine? That's the magazine.
Oh, right. I mentioned this. We always say this is the best issue yet. We always say we've got to better this one, and to an extent we always do. We try as best to do that. This one is going to be hard to do, I think, because we will do it. But this issue has been the response from the writers, the readers, the supporters, everybody who love what we do and love the magazine. I've just said how good it is. For us, that's the best compliments we can get, really. The future is continue to do what we're doing, I think, Kate. That's what we can do. We have a few irons in the fire, which aren't official yet, but we have a few irons in the fire to steadily grow the magazine, because it's all about growing properly rather than growing too big. I think I learned that from the first time Auto Magazine in print. But I think growing when you can, and the team we've got, Team Haunted, are amazing. And I think we grow from there, Andy.
100% agree. I think growing in the right way is exactly where we need to be. I do want to see it grow. I think it deserves the audience that it's just starting to kind of get now. It's not just a niche or cult magazine. It's something a bit special now. And I think from the very moment you pick up the cover, certainly with this issue, I think it's a complete magazine. From the moment that we kind of released the picture of the cover, there was just something different about the reaction of what we were getting on social media. I think if you can kind of, the images that are on there, they're all quite nice, sort of monotone images with this beautiful sort of crushed red, velvety type text. But I just think we're starting to understand that the cover has always been important. It's always page one of the magazine, but also the people or whatever it is that's represented on there has to be something that people in the community want to see. We had the free pullout on the front cover of UFO Today, and I think that was really important that we celebrate that area that we've not necessarily touched upon for quite a long time. We did try and do UFO Today when we were back in digital. I think we did pretty well, but it's just kind of getting that right balance of what's in the magazine and the kind of people that are going to pick it up and pay for it to get it printed, because it's got to be important that it has to be of interest to those people and that have put their hands in the pockets to do this. And I just think everything's special with this particular issue. The Battersea Poltergeist, getting Nick Groff back. I mean, Nick's always been a big draw for us because, you know, it's Nick Groff. He's just very affable. He's very approachable, and he's probably one of the best out there. So to get him is always a really nice sort of achievement. But Hans Holzer, the Are You Haunted team, there's kind of little elements that are just sort of quite diverse, but it's what our community wants to read. And I think we kind of know roughly now that that's where we're pitching. And just within 3 days, we knew that there was something special about this magazine, I'd say.
I think it's definitely going to be the start of things blooming. So, I mean, there was, you went over to America, didn't you? You sent the magazine over. There was the pictures of the Hellier crew sort of holding up and reading, which was a lovely image. And
I mean, we've always had a loyal audience in America, always had a good audience.
50-50.
I'd say, yeah,
Wow.
50-50 with UK and America. We've always had people subscribe from America and want the magazine. And I say we are working on more irons in the fire for that to increase. You know, we want people not to have to afford to pay silly postage prices to get the magazine from us. We want to have a place in USA where people can buy from. You get that on, look, the rise of the Fae.
I wonder who that's by.
I wonder who that's by, yeah. Yeah, as Andy said, it's growing properly, growing slowly, growing enough to warrant growth. Well, that's a good one too. You know, we've always said we want to crawl before we can walk before we can run. There's no point growing too big for your boots, no point at all. We've steadily, the team Haunted, and I say it's a team because it's not just me and Andy, it's everybody who's ever written for us is part of part of Haunted magazine, and everybody who's bought a copy as well. We want to grow to support the readers and the writers, and you know, I think we're also getting people like in the academia world wanting to write for us, which is we've approached them in the past, and someone saying, yeah, well, you know, you're Haunted magazine, you're a jokey magazine, you're not serious. Now they're approaching us wanting to write because they see that we're not just a jokey magazine. There is something about the magazine that attracts people to it, and there's nothing like it. I don't think there's nothing like it at all in the field.
I think, like I say, that's down to the fact that a lot of the writers are in the field and are doing it, and they're not necessarily academics, and they're talking to their peers. You know, when I'm writing, I talk to my peers in my head. I talk to my colleagues in my team when I'm writing, and try and explain it to sort of a wider audience. It's not, I'm not an academic that sat down and put the research together and just presenting research. I'm doing it, and I think all the writers have that feel about them, that they're, you know, where if you've got the 14 times, and I'm a huge fan of 14 times, where you've got 14 times, which some of their, I find some of their bigger articles hard work because I haven't got all the background knowledge of what they're talking about, and I have to go away and research it. Whereas this, it feels very accessible and very friendly. And I also feel there's, though I could access any of the writers and ask them questions about their articles and say, hi, I'm Kate, you know, would you like to have a chat about X, Y, and Z with me? And I'm sure they would all come back and be quite happy.
And I think now with social media, people like our writers, like yourself, and like Kate Turrell, and like Penny, are on Twitter, are on social media, and we always make a big play of putting their details down so people can contact them.
Yeah.
They want to be contacted. They want to be asked questions. That's another part of the magazine and social media. They go hand in hand. We also use QR codes, so we are putting a bit of digital in the magazine by having QR code where people can scan the magazine and get extra features, get photos, live interviews with Shirley from the Battersea Poltergeist case, websites of all the contact people who write for us. So we are, although we love print and print is number one for us, we are putting a bit of digital back into the magazine as well.
Yeah, and I was saying before before we came on recorded, I love the magazine. I am old school. I am of that era where having something in your hand is very precious, and I'm a book sniffer as well. I'm one of those kind of weird people. Two last things. I know this is really short. Two last things before we go. Andy, I'm going to grab you back at some stage very, very soon and talk about your book, because I'm super interested to find out about that. Where can people find the magazine? Where can people buy it from? And where can people access it digitally?
Okay, magazine, our website, autumnmagazineprintshop.com. Basically, this issue's on sale, not many left to be honest, and all the back issues as well from when we first started printing, second time around, issue 15. And we have stockists in Aunt Antique Centre in Hinckley, where when things start opening up, you'll be able to buy a copy there. We have Innisdale House in America, and also in Australia. You can buy from Sarah Chimikiro. She kindly stocks the magazine for us. Australia's growing really well, and because it's been locked down for a year, to say that it's selling in Australia during lockdown is pretty amazing. So Sarah's great, and basically, so online or via those places, if you ever get to those places, we are looking at having more stockists. I think Andy and I agree it's a way forward for us, and people don't have to pay, like I say, silly postage prices, and the weight for postage at the minute is a bit not the great, should I say, postage sometimes. So yeah, it's
definitely worth the wait though, and it's definitely exciting when it drops on your doorstep and you can have a flick through. It's one of those sit down with a cup of coffee a few times over a weekend and chill out and flick through it. I want to thank you both so much for coming on for this quick chat. I am going to get you back at some point to talk more in depth about your experiences and you as people, basically, as well as promoting the magazine, and different people are on it. But for right now, thank you so much for talking through what it's about. I will drop a comment in the comments, the website and how you can access the magazine. But if you haven't already come across it, please go out there, track it down, get yourself a copy, get yourself a good sniffable copy of the magazine.
I'll do it again.
Bless you.
Disturbing.
I know, so disturbing. And Andy, I'm going to get you back. Andy has written a book. I'm not going to give too much away right now. I'm going to get Andy back, and we're going to be talking about his new book. So
you know what? It's so talented. It's so annoying. It really is.
Bless. Take that as a compliment, Andy. Take it and run.
I will.
Take it and run.
It's the only one I'll get.
Thank you, guys. If you just stick around after this when I stop recording, but thank you so much.
Pleasure.
No problem. Thank you very much for your time. Thank you.